Hello. Can you hear me all right? Thanks for helping us out if you can hear me.
Hi, Jaleel. I'm here. I'm just
Hey.
on another WebEx as well.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank
No,
you.
you said you're good, but I'm here.
Thank you.
You can see everything, right? As the co-host.
I think so. I think yeah, I see share screen. Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
Wait, it says host disabled participant screen share, so I guess not. I'm glad I clicked it. I'm sorry.
Can you see? Can you?
I can see it, but it just says that it has me out as a participant, even though.
You're supposed to be the host.
Okay, yeah. Let me log in with a different one. I'll try again.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'll try again. I'll be right back.
All right.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. We don't have to worry. I don't need any screen sharing capabilities, but this is the account I think she shared it with. So, but we'll just not worry about it. I just want to try and brief Alexis really quickly, if that's possible.
It's okay. Is it Jaleel?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm sorry.
Um,
I got the questions and I saw them. It's okay.
you sure you think they're all right? That
Yeah,
was
it was.
yeah, you
It's
got through them
okay.
pretty
Don't
quick.
worry.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just trying to focus on services. So as many services, resources you could provide, will just to reference at least. That's all we're really looking for, so people can hear about them, and then we can follow up with them and give them more info if we need to. But just
Okay.
that's that. The summer questions there just focused on getting more information for services and what they do generally in Sacramento. So
Sounds good.
okay, cool. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right.
Jaleel, this is Stacy. Do you have anything you need me to sign in? So is there anything you need to share? I'll probably try to sign in anyway with that. rights in case you need me,
Um,
or are you good?
well, yeah, I'm not sure if we don't plan on sharing anything screen wise, but so yeah, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. I don't think it will come up, but just in case, it would be nice. But or
Okay.
if you could share, if you could somehow figure how to just type in, I'll send, or it's just my first and last name 98 at yahoo.com. That was the one that she had originally sent, I think. So you can send that in the chat or something.
Okay, let me try to get off this one and I'll be right with you.
Okay. All right. And then we got, let's see. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for joining. We're going to wait on a couple of people.
Hi, Jaleel. Yeah, I saw you posted about it, so it seemed really interesting. So thank you for posting.
Yeah, definitely. Wait to get started, and we'll tell you all about what we have in store for today. Hello, thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hi, here we go. I had the wrong one. I'm like, why is it not working? Okay,
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
that's okay.
You saw the second email.
Yeah, I just looked at it because I said, well, if they're not on at 6, it must be a new email in here.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. I'm glad. We had to make sure that was an oversight we made. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But thank you for finding that email and joining us. I was like, yeah, something must be up. She must have to find it. So
Yeah, I've been waiting.
I knew it. I did. I knew it. All right, and Alexis is our other panelist for tonight as well. So she's here as well, and we have James. So James, we can go ahead and get started if you'd like. We got a great event in store, and we'll go ahead and start this event off right now, and we'll make sure James can go ahead and kick it off.
Actually, I think maybe let's wait until 6:05 just in case any more guests come.
All right, that's all right.
Right.
Cool. Let's see. Might have share screen. Okay.
Yeah, because I actually shared the link with a few people and I gave them the other one. So let me update too. Okay.
Hi, Jaleel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay, cool. Do you want to try and give me my email host capabilities now that you're on?
Hold on one moment. Let me get this.
Okay.
I guess we can get started now. It's about that time.
All right. We may let's see what Stacy says. We should wait until she gives me host capabilities, and then we could even play a Christmas song if everybody like.
That's fine.
Yeah, actually, let's break the ice a bit. Any plans for the holidays? Question for the panelists. See what's going on.
No, we can't go anywhere.
That's
So,
right.
well, let me not say no. So it's just family plans at
Mhm.
home with the kids. Maybe my brother or my mom will come over and we'll have brunch. I usually cook a brunch on Christmas Day and we watch NBA games all day.
Okay.
I'm a
You said
huge
you do
NBA
brunch,
fan. Yeah.
and not the dinner. You don't do Christmas dinner, huh?
Nope, you can snack on whatever is left from breakfast and lunch. That could be your dinner.
Right.
There's usually a lot of food, just a different combination. So whatever
Right.
you want to eat throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I have similar plans, just hanging out with the family, at the house. So, and trying to cook up a storm. But I already did all my cooking that I could do and bust out on Thanksgiving. So it might be a repeat, I might be
Oh,
busting on the same things. I have some improvement to be made though. So I tried mac and cheese for the first time. It was fun. It was
oh,
decent,
cool.
yeah. But I had it wasn't, I think that comes with, a couple batches under your belt.
Yeah,
You get better at that
you
type
got
of
to
stuff.
do it a few times. Yeah.
That's right. But mashed potatoes, those got those on lock, so don't worry.
Well, that's good. Learning how
Mhm.
to cook.
And Brussels sprouts, those are on lock. Classics, the classics.
Yes.
All right. Yes. Okay, we got a good amount of people on here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much, and we thank you for our panelists coming. We try to prepare is a very informative event and try to build on the last event that we had. So we'll go ahead and get started. James, you can go ahead and kick it off then.
Yeah, let's do that. So starting off, just to introduce everybody, I'm James Brown. I'll be one of our MCs for the night.
And I'm Jaleel Baker, and I'll also be emceeing tonight. We have a couple of other members from the Sacramento NAACP on the call, and also the Youth Council as well that we'd like to introduce before we have our panelists introduce themselves. So we'll just pass it to Aaliyah, and then we'll pass it to um, Miss Betty, President Betty Wiliams after that. So Aaliyah, you can go ahead, and then we'll pass it to Betty just to say a quick hello.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah. I'm the secretary for the Youth Council.
Oh, and we can also have Preatty introduce herself before President Betty as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Preatty. I am the vice president of this council.
Thanks, Preatty. All right, and then if President Betty's there, if just to say hello, that's our president of the adult branch. She helped us connect with everybody.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Betty Wiliams, President of the Greater Sacramento NAACP. And thank you for inviting me and your guest again. I'm looking forward to this. It was such a lively conversation last time and educational more so than anything. So thank you, Youth and College Division, for bringing forth this forum again. I appreciate it. And
Thank
welcome,
you.
everyone.
Yes, definitely.
Also, if you ever want to join, make sure Youth and College Division, you give the information on how to join your unit. And if you want to join the NAACP adult branch, you can always just go to our website at sacnacp.com, hit the membership button, and it's only $30 for a year. So we would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, definitely. Yes, we can have. If Aaliyah, if you when you get the chance, just go ahead and the general membership link as well. You can put that in the chat whenever you get the chance. And we also want to give yeah, just a quick shout out to the adult branch, and we've been working really close with them and trying to make sure that we can prepare as many events with their support. So we're always on the same page with the youth and having a presence in Sacramento. So we're happy to be here and happy to be working with everybody. This is definitely an important topic, domestic violence and other forms of abuse. We got a good intro at the first webinar on just an overall explanation and description of some of the forms of abuse that we want this group to be aware of, or the membership that we have as a target audience, which is younger people, but also the target audience of the adult branch, which is encompassing everybody at this point with the range. So we want to try and have a comprehensive of a conversation about abuse as possible, with a focus on you know, some of the considerations for growing and expanding domestic violence reports as well. So that was what we covered on at the first event. James, if you want to give them a quick introduction on what we'll be covering tonight, and then we'll pass it to the panelists to introduce themselves and get started with questions.
Yes, so in our last seminar, we kind of talked about, we started identifying different types of abuse and domestic violence. So last meeting was kind of an identifier type of meeting to learn the terms and understand the signs of what may be an abusive relationship, or the different situations that apply to domestic abuse and how that can affect somebody's health, mental and physical. So it was an identifying seminar. It's available on our YouTube if you want to check it out. So it was primarily about identifying what domestic violence is. This seminar is going to be more about solutions and talking about what to do in those situations, how to get out of them, and what needs to be done to move past that.
Definitely, and identifying resources and the services that are available that are provided in Sacramento as well. And so, yeah, we're hoping to have a good conversation around those topics. And to start it off, we'll go ahead and pass it to Ms. Tamara Fleming to go ahead and introduce herself, and then Ms. Alexis Griffin.
Okay, good evening. Thank you guys for inviting me again. I'm Tamara Fleming. Currently, I work as a social worker. I'm a permanency worker for Sac County CPS. I have had previous work with WEAVE, which is Women Escaping a Violent Environment. It's a domestic abuse shelter hotline. They have all types of resources and services for women escaping domestic violence. And then I've worked with Folsom Women's Prison, creating a program for women who were transitioning back into society. So a lot of just focusing on community, but primarily it has been women, but it's not just solely for women. So I want you guys to know, male and female, because men do experience domestic violence as well. So I just want to highlight that for you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Alexis Griffin, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, a little bit of background as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm a little nervous. My name is Alexis Griffin. I am an office assistant for Mindsets Counseling and Coaching Center with Daphne Goche. I believe she was on the panel last week. So she had asked if I could take her place this week. I actually am a case manager for Weave currently. I actually work at the Mather campus at a transitional housing program that we partnered up with Next Move to provide services. But previously I worked at our Safe House for a year, working with clients that were escaping domestic violence and sex trafficking. So yeah, here I am.
Okay, cool. So you got, yes, it's a cool position and some experience now to talk about here. And I really appreciate you joining us today. And we're going to make sure it's a comfortable conversation for everybody. So James, we'll go ahead and kick it off with our first question.
Yes, absolutely. Let me do that. So we just kind of wanted to ease into it with a more simple, broad question. So what are the most common types of domestic violence and abuse that we should be aware of?
Yeah, feel free to give examples and stuff like that as well about these.
Okay. Alexis, you want to go first, or you want me to?
Sure, we can go back and forth and have an open conversation since I'm a little nervous. But sure, I don't mind, sharing, talking about it together. I will start with one. I would say with social media is like a huge one, which is like a technological source of abuse, which is like tracking your social media, tracking your devices, tracking your location on your phone, which is really found more in like the youth generation, with like tracking iPhones, tracking your phone, tracking having each other's account information, passwords, and things like that, which tends to lead later on to a form of domestic violence or some sort of control, power and control eventually.
Some young people probably know about social media type of abuse, and that type of example comes up a lot for young people.
Yes, and initially, like I said, it's usually cute at first, you have the passwords and you have the trust, and then it leads to other things eventually, with like stalking or harassing, controlling the social medias, blocking, things like that. The partner, women and male and female, tend to take roles back and forth with that one.
Right. And that one is very important, especially for this audience. I think the youth council, that came up, a little bit last time, but to keep the focus on that, since you guys, well, I shouldn't say you guys, but teens typically spend a lot of time on social media or on their phones. And so the age range for experiencing domestic violence is 18 to 24. So you do have to be mindful of what you're allowing in terms of the technology abuse. So I do agree with Alexis, that is one. The physical and the verbal, those are obvious, those are overt. You can identify, you can see the physical abuse, you can feel it. The verbal, emotional, you can also feel, but the emotional, the psychological, I just want to draw emphasis to that, because you don't want to dismiss the importance of that, because that mind control, which we touched on a little bit last time, is the gateway to you being subdued in terms of the power and control that Alexis talked about. And you have to be able to be in the presence of mind to know what has actually happened to you. So pay attention, focus on the words that are being said to you, the actions, the mistreatment, because sometimes we'll just dismiss them as, oh, well, he loves me, so that's why he acts this way, or he or she was raised that way, so they don't know any better. So then we start to make excuses for the behavior, and then before you know it, you're in a full-blown domestic violence situation that is difficult to get yourself out of. So I would just say, we know the obvious, the physical, the verbal, the emotional, there's just the toll that it takes on individuals. Pay attention to how you are allowing, or how someone is treating you. I can't say you're always allowing it, but if you continue to let things go that are being said to you, if you're called out of your name one time, don't dismiss it. Don't say, well, that's cute, or that's just who he is, that's how he communicates. Don't make excuses for the behavior, because then it'll lead into, like Alexis mentioned, the technology will lead into more physical abuse that can it can affect your safety, long term, and maybe if you have children involved, can affect your kids and your well-being in terms of the mental health aspects of it. So focus on those, the ones that you can't really see, like the financial we talked about as well last week. Those that are kind of obscure that you may not necessarily pay attention to at first. Let me take you out shopping, and if you do what I do, you get the clothes, and if you don't, then we're going to cancel the shopping trip. Like those kind of things, don't take them lightly. I would just say it's easy for us to just say physical and verbal and social and say all of these things, but you have to really pay attention, especially when you're in it, because sometimes you won't necessarily see what other people can see.
And just a quick follow-up on this question, and outside of domestic violence relationships where partners may share or experience that type of violence, what are examples of other forms of abuse that may be around domestic violence or other forms of abuse that people may be experiencing in households that isn't necessarily within a domestic violence relationship? And just some other examples I was thinking of for the audience to have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go, Alexis.
Well, I was going to kind of ask a kind of question too. Are you asking like the different types of abuse, or examples of the different types of abuse?
Definitely some examples. I just want people to be aware that, that they may be experiencing abuse, or be able to, be looking out for different forms of abuse, whether they're in or out of a relationship, or, a serious partnership. What are the other examples that people may be experiencing abuse,
Well, I would like to give a couple examples for the physical abuse and the emotional abuse, just a couple, just to kind of clarify. Sometimes women and men, but I'll say women because I identify as a woman. I'll say a lot of women that I talk to and I come across, we do excuse certain behaviors and we justify why certain things are done. So punching walls, slapping you, holding you down, pulling your hair, strangling you, pushing you, shoving you, those are forms of physical abuse. I also wanted to mention about the technology abuse. There is another one that a lot of people kind of dismiss, is breaking technology, breaking someone's phones, breaking someone's laptops, their personal technology, because it upsets them, their PlayStation 5s, their TVs, anything like that. If it means like a value to that person, that's also another example of a form of abuse for technology. I also wanted to touch on sexual abuse as well, because that is a very big mark too as well. Sexual abuse can look like, and you can help me out, Tamara, if you want to help me with this one, because there's a lot to say, there's a lot to cover with sexual abuse to look for, which is a lot of manipulation, a lot of saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to break up with you. If you don't do this sexual act, I'll break up with you. If you don't do that, I'll do this to you. I'll tell your parents. I'll post your pictures on social media. If you don't do this, that's another form of sexual abuse. What's another?
Calling. Sometimes they'll do the call the whore or slut, call you that, and to kind of make you feel like that's what you are. So then you're like, well, if that's what I am, then I'll concede anyway. I'll do it anyway. Just another form of manipulation, like you said.
Yes. Also, rape. That obviously is a form of sexual abuse. Cheating or threatening to cheat, or withholding as punishment, or forcing abortions, forcing pregnancy on someone. Those are all forms of sexual abuse.
And to give you some other examples like that, maybe you don't really talk about. I brought up one last week, was the spiritual abuse, how some people are raised in a Christian or whatever your religion is, the home, and then typically, the religion says that the man is the head of the household and the woman is submissive. So if you're a woman and you're into what the God's word say, you're going to do it. So they'll intimidate you, or they'll try and make you feel bad about what it is you're not doing. Well, the Bible says that you're supposed to be submissive, or you're supposed to do what I say do. I'm the head. So then they use that sort of tactic against you. There's also the cultural piece to it, the immigration. There's people who are immigrants who are here who don't really too much know the laws, but they know that the male is a dominant in that culture. So then they'll be threatened with deportation or something regarding the legal status of being an immigrant here. So they'll use that coercion in that way. Other ones could be with the gaslighting, like we talked about previously. So there's so many different ones. The intimidation, the mind control. I think those are the ones, Jaleel, that I would like to just outline or highlight for you all more so, because we know when we see it, it's just a matter of acting on it. And sometimes, but then there's other times, the ones that we don't necessarily see, that you're just kind of not sure of, that you need to get more information on, or you need to get more help regarding, because you may not necessarily see it as abuse when it truly is. And that is what leads into other forms of abuse. I hope I answered your question.
Definitely,
Or
yeah. And we have some more questions based on other examples as well, that, you know, more specific examples. But James, you want to go ahead and ask this next question?
Yeah. So directly, now that we kind of highlighted some of the most common forms of domestic violence, what do you do when you're in a domestic violence relationship, like a violent relationship?
First, I would say the first thing is to identify it as that. To be real, be honest about the situation that you're in. Because until you do that, you're not going to make any plans to do anything else. So you have to be honest. Don't ignore what's happening to you. Have a self-talk, whatever it is you have to do with yourself. And you have to recognize that it's not going to get better just by you remaining silent. So you have to make sure you're not ignoring the situation. Be honest about it. And at that point, then you have to start reaching out. I know a lot of times in the Black community, like we discussed previously, is we don't like anyone else in our business. We don't want to be judged. We typically will not tell someone when we're getting abused, either because we don't know, or we don't see it as such, or we're embarrassed, whatever the reason may be. So then we begin to isolate ourselves even more. And that is the goal of domestic violence, the power and control, the isolation. That is how you continue on with that. That's how the perpetrator continues on, because you're suffering in silence. So I would just say, don't suffer in silence. You know, be vigilant, be real, reach out to family members, friends, someone in the community. It's kind of difficult now, like we know, because of COVID, because you're mostly with the perpetrators, usually if you live with them. So there's not as much of an opportunity to reach out. So I would just say continuously be real about it, and to reach out as much as you can so that you can save yourself from the situation.
Alexis, yeah, did you have anything on that as well?
Yes, I wanted to add just a couple of things, and I definitely agree with everything that she said, as far as like identifying and being ready and being real, like, and voicing your life. Like I support that 100%, because really, I have seen women and men come into the safe house and go right back to their abusers. So it's really important to identify that there is an abuse there, and then identifying that you want to leave the situation, because not everybody wants to leave their situation for different reasons. And what I will say to add to that, once you are ready to take that step, Weave does offer a 24-hour support line service that you can call if you are experiencing domestic violence. And I can give you that number. It's a 24/7 number. It doesn't matter the age. We are 18 and up shelter, but if there is someone that is younger, like we've had teenagers call our support line looking for resources. We do offer resources, so it's not just strictly a domestic violence line. It's a support line. So we deal with those who have experiencing suicide or domestic violence, or if you're a child, if you are a youth experiencing domestic violence, you can also call that support line and they will provide you with the resources to get to where you need to go. And I think that's really important to be connected to those kind of resources as well, because everyone's case is different. So everyone's reason of escaping looks different. Some who are in violent situations more so have to do more safety planning and exiting and preparing to leave the situations. And then there are situations where sometimes somebody just needs someone to talk to and doesn't have anyone to talk to. And our support line provides that service as well, and helping you clear out your thoughts and safety planning on where you can go, who are your support systems, and what your resources look like. So like I said, I can give you that number for anyone that you're more than welcome to share it.
Yes, we'll definitely, that's an important resource to contact them with. James, go ahead. What you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you could put that in the chat, that would be amazing, and we'll probably put it in the description of the video when it comes out on YouTube. But this kind of leads directly into our third question, which I'll pass it off to Jaleel.
Okay, and before we get to that question, we just wanted to clarify if we have questions that are coming in on the chat, and we just wanted to see if you have any questions throughout the event. We have a question and answer section at the end of the event, and I'm not sure if these questions, or if President Betty wanted this question to be asked as a follow-up question right now. Did you want that right now, President Betty? And thank you for the support line. I see the support line in there.
Sorry about that. I just thought maybe you were going to ask it. I was just wondering, I know we're talking a lot about women and domestic violence, but I was wondering if you're seeing the same sort of thing with men coming to you, or, you know, you have the same-sex relationships, and even if it's a heterosex, it doesn't matter. Do you have men coming to you with the same concerns, and do you give them the same advice?
Yeah, this is good for just to get a foundation as well. So let's definitely y'all, yeah, both of y'all, whoever wants to go first on this one.
Well, Alexis, are you?
No, wait.
Okay. When I was at I worked at the Safe House as well, and there was one male out of the entire union who happened to be there when I was there. So that kind of highlights that out of all the rooms available, there was one man. But men are, it's 1 out of 4 for men, and one out of every 4 men, and 1 out of every 3 women. So it does happen in the reverse, that there are women who abuse men. And I think it's even more of a stigma attached to it for men in terms of the embarrassment, because they're supposed to be manly men. They're supposed to not, tell if they're being abused or have emotions in that way. And the gentleman that was at the Safe House, just to give you a little context, his issue was that he was being physically and emotionally and mentally abused. And he was, he had developmental disabilities. So he was kind of, and that means his education, he didn't really have much education. So he didn't have his own personal resources to be able to financially care for himself, which is where a lot of women see themselves. But just to let you know, he didn't identify it as himself as abuse. Someone in his family forced him to call so that he can get shelter, because the woman happened to be the one who was making all the money, and she was using the finances against him. So he was in the situation that we talk about for women, but it was in the reverse. So that opened my eyes to it, because I know going in, I had an innate bias thinking that it was more so women, but we do have men that experienced that. And I sat and listened to his story, and it does go both ways. There's also domestic violence in the LGBTQ community as well. And so statistics show that even though the different communities are represented, the age range has stayed steady at 18 to 24, as far as what statistics show. Alexis, do you have anything else like updates for that? But I know as far as I knew that age range was still pretty much set for the different communities.
Yep, no, that's everything. And I it's been the same as far as like the safe house. There has been quite sometimes we've had quite a few men in our safe house with different backgrounds. Some are single fathers or different age groups, different race. We've had them come from all across to our safe house, not just from strictly California. We try to stay much as in our county as possible, but we're not limited to those who came all the way from Arkansas or Florida. We've had clients all over we've come into our place, and especially men included as well. So yes, and like she said, the LGBT community as well. Like Weave supports all races, all religions, all ages, all sexes. So yeah, it's pretty.
Okay. All right. So
Thank you.
we had a follow-up question on this as well. So I just wanted to ask about just if domestic violence in all relationships may lead to financial abuse or it may present itself in financial abuse. So we were wondering, what can someone do to ready themselves and get prepared or get out of a financially abusive relationship?
Now you use the key word, preparation, because that's what it'll take.
All
So like Alexis said, depending on your situation, you want to make sure you're safe first. So if you're in a relationship where you're being abused physically, obviously your safety is the key. If you're in a relationship where it starts off kind of as the passive aggressive and the financial abuse, where you're not necessarily being physically harmed, I would say taking preventative measures is the key. So I always tell my clients, get out there and figure out what skills you have. Find out skills. There's a lot of people saying, I don't have any skills. I didn't graduate from college. I didn't graduate from high school. I have this sixth grade education. What am I going to be able to do? So I think what happens is people give up. So they say, you know what, I can't do it. I can't make it. So I need someone's help. So what I always encourage them to do is to find a skill, determine what your skills are. So you have skills assessments that can be taken. I've done them. There are skills assessments that you can find online to determine what skills you have. And then after you find out your skills, then you can determine what jobs match the skills that you have. So if you don't have any skills, because there's a lot of people in this situation who don't, then you can go to trade schools, you can get GEDs, you can go Job Corps. There's a lot out there that you can do to educate yourself so that you are prepared to be independent in case, the situation goes to the left. So that's why I always say, try to prevent yourself from getting in that situation in the first place. But it's easier said than done. So no judgment, not being dismissive to the plight of someone who is engaged or not engaged, but who is experiencing domestic violence. But you do have to prepare yourself to be able to be independent, because you never know. So I would say just to figure out what your skills are. If you don't have any, get some skills. There's certification programs. There's, obviously, you can get an AA through junior college. You can go to get a degree from college. You have a diploma, GED, whatever it is that you need to do. But you have to start somewhere. And saying that I can or I don't is not going to get you out of that situation. So I would just say prepare, like you said, Jaleel. Prepare yourself to be, able to be independent and self-sufficient.
Yes, that definitely seems like very necessary to be able to do that and move on. Alexis, do you have anything on this as well?
I agree with everything that she was saying. I do also want to add that just like she said, regaining that power back is very, very important, especially someone that has experienced domestic violence or any kind of form of a violent domestic violence. It's just important that that a survivor, if it is financial abuse, because it looks different when it comes to financial abuse, but like, getting employed if you're not employed, or saving, mad money, or, like things like that, putting money in a shoebox, and safety planning for sure. Like I said, it's a different situation for everyone in those kinds, and being safe is like always number one. So, and safety planning is very, very important as well. And there are organizations that help people safety plan and things like that as well.
Right. Okay. And on this note, so we're talking about preparation, and we have some parents that may be on the line, and I can ask Velma's question if that's all right, or you want to go ahead. Okay. So the question is just quickly that we're wondering how early is too early to start talking to your children about preparing for these type of relationships. Is there a too early? When do y'all think is, you know, a good time to start doing that for your kids?
I don't agree that, I don't think that there's a set age that you can say it's too early. As parents, you know your children, you know their maturity level, you know their level of understanding, because if we're being real, there's children who are infants, 1, 2, 3, 4, however old, that are watching, that are, you know, seeing their parents be abused. And although they can't understand exactly what's happening, they can't verbalize it, it's still, studies show that children as young as 8 months old have been traumatized by domestic violence. And, you know, at 8 months old, they can't talk, but you can still see, you can feel like that negative energy, the trauma response that the child can get. So I would just say, know your children. And if your children have been exposed at a young age to domestic violence situations, whether you're watching it on TV, whether they have a friend who is experiencing violence, a relative, I think that is the time when you have to speak with them. You can't use age as the determining factor, especially if they're seeing it somewhere, because you do want to provide an explanation that it's not okay. So thinking of the age, I think, is not necessarily the way to go. But if they're not experiencing it at all, if they haven't been exposed to violence in any way, then you want to gauge the maturity level. But with all the access that kids have to social media, TV, you know, all kinds of things, videos, YouTube, the likelihood of them not, I mean, if you have a child that has not seen any type of violence or any negative relationships in this day and age, then, you know, God bless you as a parent, you're doing great. But that's just not typical nowadays. So I would just say gauge the maturity level, and then make sure that what they're seeing, you give an explanation for, so that they know that it's not okay.
Great answer. Great answer.
Thank you.
All right, and that feeds into what we're talking about as well. Is we're worried about children that might be experiencing or viewing abuse in their household. So I'll pass to James on this question.
So yeah, and this may not necessarily just apply to children, but what should you do when someone you know is being abused? So you're outside of a household, you see, you're kind of looking in and you see the person is in an abusive situation. So what do you as the individual in that situation do to try and stop that?
I have a question. Are you saying like actually physically see someone being abused? Or are you saying just like, you know that someone is being abused in an abusive relationship?
You pretty much, you know they're being abused. You may have seen that either way.
Okay.
Alexis, I'll give you the floor.
Okay. Well, if you see someone being an abuser, if you see someone actually being abused, always, you know, call the authorities, call 911. If this is a really hard conversation, because if you do know anyone experiencing domestic violence, you can be a support system for them, being a listening ear. I can tell you what they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that you don't deserve it, that you deserve better than this, that you will find better. They just want someone to listen to and support them. As far as when it comes to like resources, encourage counseling, encourage them to seek counseling, to encourage them to, when they open up to you about the domestic violence, and let them open up to you about it. Just start looking at those resources, start Googling with them, safe houses, you know, seeing what options are, depending on the county that you're in, what resources are available for your friend or family member. Can they stay with you? Is it safe for them to come to you to stay with you? It's about using your support system and your resources that you have available, that you're not judging them, or that you validate them and support them in wherever they're at in that stage, because there is a cycle to domestic violence. And so depending on where they're at in that cycle of domestic violence, they can come to you and say that they're ready. And then 3 days later, they're apologizing and saying that you misunderstood. And you always want them to be able to still come back and come talk to you about it, because it's very, very important that they do have that outlet. A lot of people that escape domestic violence, they feel like they have no friends, no family members, no support systems. They can't speak with anyone about it. So it's just really important to, even though how you feel is just holding how you feel in and being a listening ear. And when they're ready to leave, help them safety plan, help them connect with resources. Look into the county, look into it. And every county just about has some type of resource or some type of safe house that they could get to. Or if not, they can provide you with a local one that you can get to.
Thank you. That was great. Yes, Tamara, do you have anything on this one as well?
Alexis, she answered it great. The only thing I would say, just to highlight what she talked about as far as being a support system and holding that space, sometimes just not saying anything, because on the outside looking in, if you haven't ever experienced that, sometimes we say the wrong thing and you can turn that person off. And I have an example of when I worked at Weave, I had the opportunity to go to the hospital right after a woman was sexually and physically abused by her fiance, is what she called him. And although I wasn't her friend, I still, that was my job, to go there and to comfort her and to listen. And so as a friend, you may want to comfort them and tell them everything is going to be okay. All you need to do is this. And you want to make sure that you don't do that, because that dismisses the very plight, the emotion that they're feeling in that moment is dismissed. And I did that on my first time going, and I'm telling her, you're going to be okay. Everything's all right. And she told me, don't tell me that it's going to be okay. I just got left in a parking lot to die. I was beaten and sexually abused by my fiance, and you're telling me it's going to be okay. And I learned from that moment, sometimes just be quiet. Just be there, let them know, I know what you're going through. I can't even begin to imagine or feel what's going on with you, but I'm just going to be here for you. And when you're ready to speak, I'll listen, with no judgment, because I made that mistake, and I promised myself I would never do it again. So just make sure that you are present in that space without judgment, and sometimes just listen, don't say anything.
Thank you, definitely. And I think, we're all concerned about trying to be a support system for anybody that we know. And I wanted to ask a question about specifically children or somebody that is viewing abuse in their household. So what should someone do if when someone they know or is sharing a space with is experiencing or dealing with abuse, especially a child?
What should you do, or should the child? You're asking.
Sorry.
No, I don't know what.
No, yeah. So if you're a child and your parents are in an abusive relationship, what should you do as the child? Sorry.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Tough.
Especially if you're an older child, you might be able to do a little bit more, but yes, any child.
Well, it is. There's a number of different things depending on the circumstance. First thing, as a child, I could say, not necessarily something they would do initially, but just know that it's not okay. Don't think that because you see your parents or whomever engaging in domestic violence, or you're one or the other. I don't like to use the word engaging because it sounds as if it's just mutual combat, but there's always a perpetrator. So I would say, as a child, first, just know that it's not okay. First, recognize that that's not normal, so that the kids, we don't want them to grow up believing that it's normal. Second, I would say, is to reach out to an adult, someone that you trust. A lot of times with working for CPS, it's a teacher or it's a counselor if they're in counseling. But right now, as we talked about last week with COVID, everyone is online. So the schools have to, I think, add this part into their curriculum, so to speak. Like David mentioned last week, having signs, so that if their child is not comfortable saying it or verbalizing it, then they can make up some sort of sign. But I think, though, reaching out to an adult that they trust, because a child can't do anything about it. It's a difficult situation. So they do have to reach out to someone that they trust. And then just know, I want to reiterate, just know that it's not okay. It doesn't mean that that's how you need to deal with your conflict or resolve whatever issues you have. Just please know that that's not the right way. There's a better way to resolve issues than with fighting, using your words.
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a concern that we all had, coming up with the questions for the event is, being in that situation and, wondering how they would be able to deal with it. So thank you for that. James, did you have something? And we can pass to Alexis if she has something on this as well.
Yeah. If Alexis, you got anything to say on it?
Do you have anything on this question? We can go to the next one after this too. Okay.
I guess we'll go into the next question then. So I wanted to kind of before we started talking about the resources available and kind of what they do, I wanted to ask one question that kind of went over my head at first, and then I had kind of just thought about it. So what should someone not do in a domestic violence, like a domestic abuse situation? So what kind of things or actions should they avoid in that situation?
Thanks, James.
Okay. Well, I would say first, you don't want to engage in, like I'm saying, engage. You don't want to fight back, because that's going to escalate the issue. Try and get yourself into a safe space. Don't engage and think that you can beat up the perpetrator. I know sometimes, like, depending on it, it could be same sex, it can be it's man to woman, whatever it is. Don't escalate the situation further. I know we do have natural reflexes to want to fight back, but oftentimes that ends up not good for especially the person who is not as powerful as the other individual. So it can end up in hospital or even death. As we know, domestic violence often leads to death for women. And I would say not to dismiss it, like sort of hit on what we talked about previously. Don't ignore it. You have to deal with it. Make sure that you're not creating an even worse situation for yourself while you're there. You have to consider your safety. So don't discount the fact that this person is abusing you, because it could escalate into further. Don't downplay it. Don't say, he hit me this one time, but it only happened 2 or 3 times before, or may only happen once before. Like, don't do that. Don't be dismissive of the situation that you're in. Again, going back to being honest about where you are. And don't think that because it happened one time and it's been a gap between that somehow means it's not going to happen again. So everything that I'm saying now just kind of goes back to basically be real, be honest with yourself. But I know you're saying the question in reverse, saying what not to do, but it all comes back to that. Don't downplay it. Absolutely call it what it is. It's domestic violence. If you're being abused, that's what it is, nothing more, nothing less. Because if you're recognizing it for what it is, then you'll get the appropriate level of help or pay appropriate level of attention to the situation at hand, other than when you downplay it.
Yes. And Alexis, do you have any other no's in a domestic violence relationship? Any actions you should avoid?
I kind of twisted the question just a little bit. So I kind of want to talk about what you should do when you escape the domestic violence situation, or what you're going to do to prep to exit the situation. Because of of course, like she said, being safe and everything is very, very important. And taking advantage of the opportunity to escape is very, very important when you're ready, of course. But with that being said, it's very important to pack light, 1 to 2 bags. with just necessities that you need, hygiene products, toothbrush, toothpaste, if you have it, socks, undergarments, things like that. Making sure that you take your vital records if you can, social security card, birth certificates, anything, all your cash, your cards, if you have any debit cards, you want to take all of that with you. Anything that you don't have to come back and have to revisit the house ever again, because there has been clients who have exited and we're like, I have to go back in and go get something. And we're like, let's not do it. So it's important to grab those important documents that you need. If it's custody papers or if it's whatever documents that you need, grab them. It's also important that once you do escape, get a restraining order if you feel that it's necessary. In most cases, if it's not, some people feel like, oh, it's not necessary, but if it's a physical, let's talk about getting you to the courthouse. And the courthouse does offer a lot of, with COVID, there are some restrictions, so I would suggest you to Google it and look it up online. But the courthouse did offer resources to help you fill out the restraining orders, how to file for custody for the children and things like that, which are very, very important, especially if you're taking children with you to escape a violent situation. It's also important to take, there's a couple other things. Turning off your location on your phone when you're escaping is important. Also getting your vehicle tracked, going to a car dealership or a car service place. There's one like on Arden. They'll check your car, see if you have a tracker on your car. Those type of things are very, very important to do as well. You cannot, typically when you're escaping, you don't want to really tell anyone where you're escaping to. If you have to do so, maybe letting know someone, a grandmother, close relative that you could trust that will not let them know where you're escaping to. It's always best as well.
We definitely want to cover services and make sure that everybody is aware of all the services that are out there. And we definitely touched on a couple throughout the conversation. So the next question is, what are the different services available for abuse, and what can these services provide? So just a general idea of what type of resources people should be looking for to rely on in these type of abusive environments.
Well, I know just based off of experience, there's a few shelters out there. There's you have Weave, obviously. You have that's primarily DV, but there's other resources. There's St. John's Women's Shelter you have out there. I don't know if maybe I can follow up and give you some of these because they're online, but still just letting you know exactly what's there. There's My Sister's House is another one. And some of the services they provide, just as Weave, is housing services. Like there's women who they help you to sign up for housing. They also have, and it's called self-help housing, is one of the housing departments that handle, or housing agencies that handle women in this type of situation. There's also financial workshops that they give for women to help them get back on their feet, or help them feel like they have, thank you, Alexis. Help them feel like they have some type of independence, kind of telling them, how to work with their credit. There was a woman who would come, I believe, once a week. Is that still the case, Alexis? She would come once a week and they would do a financial workshop. There's group sessions. They have individual and group sessions. There's mental health counseling. They even have a school for the children. If you have children with you, there's a school on site, and they have transportation, which will take the kids to the school. So there's a lot of resources within the domestic violence shelter to help the women get on their feet so that they can become independent. And the goal is so that they won't return to the abuser, but we know it's not always the case, but there's tons of services available that can be used.
Yes, any other? I know there's probably. We want to cover the whole gamut of services that are out there, just to give people an idea. Just and CPS is that's an example of the type of services that we are thinking about as that people can rely on. In these type of situations outside of domestic violence as well. So I just wanted to say, feel free to touch on any other services that y'all know about, just that are abuse prevention resources in general.
Okay. There is. Alexis, you want to say something? I have a ton in my head. I don't want to just rattle them off.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I was actually looking up St. John's number for you because I had their contact as well.
Okay.
So I was just gonna go ahead and add that in there for you guys.
Thank you. Teamwork.
The Women's and Children's Shelter. There's also, I was doing some research. I don't know, did you mention the WIND Youth Center as well?
No, I didn't, but yeah.
Okay, the WIND Youth Center is a resource for children between the ages of 12 to 24. They are at risk for homelessness, or if they're experiencing domestic violence or anything like that. If they're experiencing domestic violence in their household with their parents or whoever that has guardianship or whatever their at-risk reasons are, they can support the children even with mentorship, case management, things like that. Like she said, my sister's house. There's also City of Refuge. They help with and support women and children that are exploited to sex trafficking. So they work with survivors of sex trafficking. And I can find their number for
Community
you.
for Peace as well.
Community for Peace.
There's Ted Brown. He has a Cornerstone Recovery. He works with domestic violence abusers, victims. He has anger management services. And that's Cornerstone Recovery. I don't have the number, but
I actually do, but I'll have to send it. I actually just had a meeting with him recently, so I can send that for him. That is actually a really good group. That is for, like she said, for abusers getting help.
Yeah. He has one for victims too, but yeah, the abusers, and then anger management.
Got you. Well, yeah, thank you for yeah, we just wanted to get the sense, and y'all have definitely helped provide the sense of that, and some explicit resources and numbers. So thank you so much. We'll definitely try and follow up with everybody on, and we'll go through, you know, the seminar and connect people with the follow-up document of some sort with these contacts. So this is great information, but we just wanted them to know that there's a lot of resources available.
Yeah, it's a lot.
In that it's one Google search away, like you all said. So thank you. James?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
go ahead. Yeah.
Better that one. Community Against Sexual Harm is CASH, and that's for like sex. If you're sex trafficking, exploiters, all those types of. CASH is that one too. But I'll follow up and get you. I just want to make sure I'm giving all the resources. Sorry.
No, thank you. This what we're doing this for, and yeah, I really appreciate that. So I had a follow-up question to that, and it's a little more on the simple side, but what is the best way to contact these resources? So what is the easiest way to go about that? I mean, of course we have the internet, but I mean, I'm sure that could lead into some potentially a potentially dangerous situation if the person in question maybe finds the history or something like that. So what in your opinion would be the easiest and safest way to do that?
Well, see, that's just it. It depends on the situation. So what may be easy for one person may be difficult. I mean, there's call, like Alexis talked about, the domestic violence hotline 24/7. Then you have you have where you can go online. You also have where you can share with someone, but it'll depend on the safety. And I know we keep saying that, but that's one of the things you're taught when it comes to the domestic violence, or when you learn about it, is that you do want to always consider the safety risk first. So I have to say that. But calling, everyone has a cell phone nowadays, but what happens if your abuser takes your cell phone? Then what are you going to do? So there's different situations. So if you have access to a phone, then by all means call, get somewhere safe and call. If online is what you have, I mean, because they might take your computer, they might take it. It just depends, honestly, James, what the situation is. But make sure that whatever mode you use, if you're telling someone outside of the home, make sure that your safety is paramount, so that you can tell your story and then, you know, put yourself in the best situation to not be harmed any further.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Alexis as well. What do you think is the easiest and safest way to contact any of these resources?
Oh, everything that she said, I do definitely agree with, including like, you know, said it's being safe first is most important. So whatever that safety planning looks like, and that's why I mentioned safety planning a lot, because it just kind of depends, you know, if you can get to a phone or if it's at a restaurant, or whatever is just a safe opportunity. It's very, very important. Weave does also offer, what we did, I would suggest to check our website, but we used to let people walk in during the business hours if it's safe to do so at that time, and they can come and talk if they don't have access to a phone. People get very creative. You can let a relative know, have a relative call on your behalf and say, hey, these are good times to call or call her at this time, where we've gotten creative to connect with clients who've experienced domestic violence. So whatever works, if it's, like I said, if it's a grandmother who calls and says, hey, my niece says, can you call at this time, or blah, 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 blah. And we try to connect whatever way that we can, and safest for the client.
All right. All right. I can go ahead and ask. This will be our final question, and then we'll go ahead and go into a question and answer section just to see if anybody has any questions that are on their mind. But we just wanted to know, and we've talked a lot about this as well, is just if you have any last thoughts on what you should do after you either reported a situation, or have gotten some help. What does the road to healing, look like after you've made an initial report?
The road to healing. Well, that's interesting, because that's another thing it's gonna depend on the situation. And one thing you must know, it's gonna be difficult. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be days when you want to give up. And for the support system of this person, you have to know that there may be times when the person goes back, like Alexis mentioned. But I think being truthful, one of the main things I see is that people aren't honest about what it is that they're experiencing. So while you're away from the home, while you're out of the situation, get that mental health going, get counseling, to build up your credit financially, build up your skill set, build up the support network so that you can become strong enough not to go back. Because one of the power and control wheel that we talked about last time, the isolation, the feelings of not being adequate enough, not being able to care for myself or my children, if there's children involved, that is going to 100% frame how you view the situation. Some parents are willing to go through and continue with that abuse for the sake of their child having a roof over their head or food in their stomach. And there's others who may just say, you know what, for all that I'm going through, I know that I need to take care of my kids. It's not worth it. I'm going to leave. So I think whatever your journey looks like, make sure that you're honest with yourself. Make sure that you're real about what it is that you can do, what it is that you can't. If you have to make a list of things that you want to accomplish, figure out what it is that you need to do to get that. I always call it a roadmap. Devise a roadmap for yourself so that you can start to check off the boxes. Sometimes it motivates you internally to see that, okay, I'm making progress. But if you don't have any vision, if you don't have any goals, you don't have anything to look forward to, then you will fall back into that. So I would just say that keep that mental health, that mind right, and keep pressing forward and don't look back.
All right. Alexis, do you have anything, any helpful, tips on how to move on, or to the healing process?
I just want to add, there is a program that does support survivors of domestic violence called Wellness Oasis. The owner of that, she has support. She has like a class and some support classes on, and it talks about healing and through the it's like 6 weeks or 8-week class, I believe. And it's just kind of like a support group for survivors of domestic violence. Also, there's a lot of I want to talk about, like, there's a lot of Birth and Beyond offers a lot of resources, especially for maybe single mothers who are escaping. So they kind of support some parenting resources as well. There's also one more I wanted to mention. Oh, there is a book, if someone ever wants to do some health healing. It's a book. One of the author, her name is Anita Ross. She actually offers a self-love workshop at our facility, but her book is called Meantime Love. So she talks about self-love in that book, and she offers it to our clients to read as well. So that's also a good read.
Got you. Okay, Meantime Love. I'm putting that one in there.
I can do it for her. I'll put it in there. Anita, I got you. I got you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so this was a great discussion, and I think we definitely satisfied our goals of the conversation, which was to make sure that people had more of a understanding of what was going on inside of abusive relationships. What are the examples? What are the things that you can do to start planning and getting away from those situations? And James, if you want to say anything before we kick it to question and answer.
Yeah, that final question in particular, that'll lead directly into our next seminar, which is kind of a live healing session. So we'll have time for people to come and share their experiences and talk about them, what they've been through, a safe space to talk about these situations and to assure that they feel they know that they're not alone, and that people are moving along on with them and trying to get out of the situation and heal with them. So that's what the next session will be about, and we'll make sure that we have the list of organizations and resources from tonight ready for that meeting, and I'll have it as a Google Drive file to send out towards the end of the meeting.
All right.
With that, we can go directly into the Q&A section. I have one question from earlier from Leslie. She wasn't able to have it presented yet, but how can someone be a resource to loved ones experiencing domestic violence?
To a loved ones, it said? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, Alexa's outlined a lot of how it can be a resource. I think we touched on that. I'm not sure when she asked that, but just to go back over the taking space, no judgment, being a resource, like Alexa just said, call the agency, whatever domestic violence agency for the individual, work as the advocate for the person. Maybe that's the person that they trust the most. So if you have someone particularly that you trust, use that person to make the calls, or maybe be your feet on the street in terms of going to get information for you that you need. Because you may not be able to have, like, there's a lot of pamphlets that you can get, and you may not be able to bring them back into the home. So have them go over them with you, read them, maybe be a resource in that way. But I think also ensure that you're letting the person know that they are worthy. I think just to continue to lift them up, continue to let them know that they're not, a bad person for what they're going through. And I think figuring out, I should say, the key to opening up that person's mind toward even being open to you is the key initially, because you can want to be a support all you want, but if that person doesn't feel comfortable or open with you, then you have to make sure you build that rapport. So without knowing specifics about who the loved one is that you're talking about, make sure that if you don't already have a close open relationship with them, that they'll even receive what it is that you're saying. You may want to make sure that it's you, because that person could shut down. You may have another relative or another friend whom that person may want to rely on more. So just kind of gauge the situation so that you don't turn them off or make them not want to reach out to anyone, because that's what you don't want, is them to shut down because they're already isolated. So I would just say, just to kind of work on building that up. Don't just jump in there sometime. Now, if it's an immediate safety risk, then obviously call 911 for them, do whatever it is you need to do to make sure they're safe. But initially kind of work on building that rapport, building yourself up to be a safe space for the person.
All right. I have another question that came in and was established before this meeting, which was about calling 911 and being afraid to call 911. And I know this is probably a discussion that y'all have already weighed in on before, but what do y'all think about if someone is afraid to call the police, or doesn't feel that is a adequate resource, or is struggling with grappling with what the legal ramifications of that call might be?
Alexis?
Oh, sorry, Alexis, you can go ahead on this one.
Well, I would suggest if someone's not comfortable. I mean, I can only let you know. Sorry. Our resources, if you contact our support line, I do want to assure that it is a confidential line. So we don't have to disclose with the police if you are at our location. We will not disclose if you are at our location, even if you're not comfortable with the police or you don't want to report it to the police and things like that. We do have instances where people do not want to involve the police. And we just provide support and services just around that situation. It's just, I guess, really being connected with resources to kind of support you around that, and still get you like legal support if needed and things like that.
Definitely. And Tamara, do you have anything on that as well? And
well, I mean, it's all too common that, especially our culture, we don't typically want to call the police. So as Alexis stated, you do have to interact with that person from where they are, meet people where they are, and you have to encourage them to be able to call law enforcement if it's an immediate safety risk, but we know all too well that it doesn't necessarily happen. So it's gonna depend, unfortunately, on the situation. But I think in terms of coming up with a resolution and try and help them through it is you do what Alexis said, you try to figure out ways around the police. Eventually, if it escalates into the type of violence that it can, law enforcement is going to be involved anyway. So you can kind of come from that point of view with them, like if heaven forbid this person puts you in the hospital or even kills you, it's going to come to law enforcement. That's where it's going to go. So instead of getting it to that situation, take preventive steps to get yourself out of the situation, so then we don't have to call the police. There's several different ways you can talk about it, but it's going to depend on what level of violence that they're experiencing currently as to what the answer would be. So there's not going to be a right or wrong answer, but I do know that for the Black culture specifically, we do not want to call the police typically for these types of issues. So you are just going to have to meet the person where they are and get creative. And then if you just have to, then you're going to have to dial 911. If it's a immediate safe risk, you're just going to have to do it if you know about it. Sometimes the victim still won't, and they end up unfortunately dead or harmed, gravely because of it. And it's very sad. But I think that comes from us also having to work on police officers, the part that we can't control. They need to have more training and sensitivity surrounding domestic violence issues, and that piece we can't control. That's more for Betty. We'll get Betty on them to do that. But we know that is a huge issue. We just don't trust them. And we know that they typically will escalate a situation that's maybe already here. The police come and they'll escalate it here, and then you end up with dead people. So it's a toss up. It's hard sometimes coming from this position to be able to convince somebody to call the police when you see what's going on. So that speaks of an even greater issue that I think, which makes domestic violence as a result of it. But just controlling what part we can, we just have to kind of meet them where they are and plan around law enforcement, so to speak. It's sad, but that's what you have to do.
definitely. That's what, that's why we pose the question, is because we know that it's something that, within our group and within, just the normal discussions around this, we know that the Black community is sensitive to this, and we wanted them to know that there's a way out of it, or potentially some other resources available outside of the police in certain situations. And so we definitely feel that has been covered and explained. So we want to make sure that everybody on this call has an opportunity to ask a question if they have a question, and if the council has any specific questions, or President Betty has any other questions, feel free to. If James has anything here too, but we'll just see if anybody has any final questions, and we can go to just a closing remarks, just to you know, have the panelists close out for this event, and we could be um,
No question, but a comment on the discussion was really good and needed. And especially we're in a COVID environment, right? And so situations are probably getting worse, and we would need to find other unique ways of getting the information out if a person is in trouble. We can't use the normal system like we used to when children went to school and they can tell a counselor they're not in a box with other children and the teacher and the counselor. And when the abuser used to leave the house, who was an essential worker and now is at home, and so you're not escaping. And so what are some unique ways, and we may not be able to answer it now, but moving away from this conversation tonight, I'm thinking for myself, if I was to tell someone what to do, what are unique ways to let people know that you may be in trouble during a COVID environment? Because it's not the same way anymore. I do like the things that were said. Tell um, a grandmother or friend to deliver that message if they get the opportunity to come by the house. Maybe we need to look at how we are using DoorDash now. They're delivering food more than, and if we can slip a message in the bag, or, I mean, these are the things that we never had to think about before. It's out of the box. And so in a COVID environment, I would think we need to think of ways that's never been printed before because we've never been in this position before. And so anyone that's listening for the third session, they may want to get some ideas on how can I get the message out that I'm in trouble without getting in trouble. And they would never know about it. And so and maybe that's something this group, the youth group, or Alexis or Tamara or others can think about and say, hey, let me start jotting down some things that we haven't been in this environment before. We need to think of another way to get our folks some help since they're stuck in this place. And it may become worse because we're at 18.7 now as far as the percentage, as far as availability before we go into an entire shutdown. So that entire shutdown may happen by this weekend. Although it's bad now, it could be worse by Saturday. And so what do we do? So I think this is an important message to have. And the last thing I probably will leave on your mind, I'm a product of domestic violence. When I was married, living in a whole different state, and all of the things that you talked about depended upon my husband. He was the breadwinner, having children, having a nice home. I didn't want to disrupt that. And if I could have found a way to leave or thought it would be better, I would have. But I stayed, and everyone thought, why I would have never stayed in that relationship. But 3 surgeries later, um, removal of my spleen, removal of my appendix, broken ribs and nose, 21 days in the hospital, 9 of those in ICU. So when I say this discussion is personal to me, it's personal to me. And so when we're in an environment of, can you survive it? It depends on the individual, but I'm a survivor. And so when I tell my story, I said, at the end of the day, I survived it, right? So, but I also want to be, as a survivor, through this youth program and this domestic violence issue, to say, what can we do? What other options can we give those individuals who may be in trouble in a COVID environment? And so I thank you for sharing all the tools that you did share tonight. And what I would also would like to see in the last session, if you could, Jaleel and James, is have a flyer of some sort so people can take, I know you're putting things in the chat box, but a PowerPoint or something so that the person that's hosting can show that and people can take pictures of it. And if nothing else, they can take that information to a friend that may be listening to this presentation tonight. And so I want us to be able to have that available. Does that make sense?
Yes, I actually throughout the meeting I've been starting to work on the compilation of all of the resources in a Google Doc I sent you your way as well. I will make sure that it is ready by the next seminar to share right away.
Excellent. Other than that, I just think it was a superb job, and I thank you for sharing. I thank you for having these forums, seminars, and I look forward to the next one. And so when is the next one?
The next one is, I believe, on December 15th, next Tuesday. I think that's, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you for sharing and commenting and helping us, work through this conversation and this topic. And it's definitely an opportunity that I'm very thankful to have provided a space and some knowledge around, and have these two excellent professionals and Betty, who have connected us, and the NAACP, who has connected us with this resource and these professionals. So thank you. We are very thankful to have this conversation, and we hope that it was informative and helpful to anybody that might be experiencing or knows anybody that's experiencing some sort of abuse. So we're very thankful, and I'll give it to James for any closing remarks as well.
Well, before the closing remarks, I'd like to allow the panelists to have their closing remarks.
Well, first, my closer is just to say thank you guys. You have done a wonderful job. I'm very much impressed with everything that you've done. You guys have appeared professional, timely, and it's great to see young men and women doing this type of work in the community. I want to thank Betty for reaching out to me, for allowing me to be on the panel with you all. I do appreciate her so much. She I always tell her she's like a superhero to me. And so just whenever you need anything, Betty, I'm here, and you as well, Youth Council. I'm passionate about this type of work, community work, and anytime I can be of assistance for you guys, as long as it's on my calendar. If my calendar is available, then I'm there. So thank you guys again for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I wanted to thank you too. Thank you guys for having me. It was nice to meet you all. I'll thank Daphne too for inviting me. So thank you guys again for the opportunity, and nice to meet you all. And thank you again for having me as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both again. Alexis for coming through a week in advance, barely a week in advance, and Tamara for coming through a second week in a row. I really do appreciate it, and for making this such a great seminar. We couldn't have done it without you. And we hope that even not as a panelist, if you want to come to the next seminar, we want to make it an open space for people to talk about their experiences and to heal. So we will assure to make it as good as we can.
And this will be on YouTube as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Talking to the secretary, both secretaries, to help us out with that. They've been a great help in helping us get this meeting orchestrated. So we'll thank them as well. So thank you so much, Stacy and Lorraine, for helping us out. And they'll close it out with and make sure it gets on YouTube, and we'll post it on our Youth Council account, which is stack NAACP _Youth Council. We hope everybody follows us there. We're hoping to get as much information out to everybody as we can. And like James said, we hope you all join us next Tuesday, December 15th at 6 for a great conversation and some healing with some other amazing professionals in the field that can help us out. So we're excited for that event as well. And that will be the last of our 3-part series. And we're hoping to go out with a bang and get as many people as there as possible as well. So we look forward to seeing anybody on this call there as well. It will be definitely a helpful resource as in that conversation too. But
Do
thank
you guys have a flyer for the next week so I can share it because I pass it around?
Yes,
You guys will have one?
Yeah, we'll go. We're
Okay.
sorry to get a flyer to you, but yes, we've been trying to circulate flyers as well. So we'll go ahead and send you a flyer via email if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That way I can share it too
Thank
for
you.
your
Yeah,
next event.
that'd be great. And we want to have your people on these calls as well. So thank you so much for contacting them. And thank you for everybody that joined the call and participated and was here listening and giving us support as well at the end here. Thank you so much.
We hope to see you next week as well. We will do our best to make it as big as we can.
Definitely.
You'll be great, I'm sure.
Y'all.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Everybody
Have
out.
a good night.
Yes, have a good night.
All right.
Holidays. Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Host, you can sign us off now.
All right.